it is hard to work really small, you know. It's more of it's easier to have a slightly larger format. I wish we had tone paper this big, but that's okay. So I've got this set up, I've got this. We're gonna go back to, the first thing I'm doing is I'm holding the pencil like this. I'm trying to, before I even draw the figure, I wanna put the curve, kind of the curve of the gesture of the pose. So I'm let's just kind of, you can kind of visualize, okay, what that's doing just by, you got that on now for me? Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. Start with it, and then as you're going, we're drawing stick figures, yay. Just kidding. You can see how it's not dark at all. I want to keep this light because I can almost guarantee you, if you learn to draw this way, I'll say it 1,000,000 times. If you learn how to draw this way, it's going to make everything else that you do drawing, like all that detailed stuff, way more convincing because you're mapping out the scale and proportion without locking in too quickly. That's one of the huge reasons why I like gesture, is that it keeps everything kind of uncertain until you really know exactly where everything's supposed to be. You don't want to do that. You don't want to lock in too quickly. I said the same thing at the that talk last night or yesterday, but my son, who has autism, was running around like a chicken with his head cut off. So it kind of made things a little different. He's speech. He doesn't have much speech. I have a 14-year-old son that can be he's a sweet boy, but he can be a handful, you know, as far as, that's why we only had one kid. It's a lot of responsibility when you have an autistic child, but they're sweet. He's sweet as he can be. Wouldn't trade him for anything. So, but I think everybody understood. You see how light I'm drawing this? Everybody see that? And what I'm trying to do is and you don't want to work on the outside. You don't want to work just on the outline of everything. You want to work, as you're doing this, we have to put in the inside, the stuff on the inside, you know, not just the outline. But I'm drawing very, very lightly. Dark enough that we can see it, of course. And you're constantly, this is for everybody, you're constantly looking down. Can you show them, go up and back? You're constantly looking up and down at your drawing. You gotta, and the more, like I said, and I said this, like I said yesterday, all the stuff I'm telling you guys, I was telling these older women who have been, most of them, some of them were men, that the same stuff that I tell you guys, like you have to go back to the fundamental, you know, the fundamentals. And they really got a lot out of it. And then, of course, I kind of throw in a lot of art history when I'm doing critiques. A lot of them had paintings that reminded me of certain artists, so I would tell them to look that artist up, you know, to have some sort of something to kind of play off. But that's just the way that I approach it. I say, hey, take a look. Like the one that got Best in Show, there's a famous German romantic painter named, has anybody ever heard of Caspar David Friedrich? No. You haven't? Really cool stuff. I should teach an art history class for you guys, or I should be talking about art history a good bit, since we don't really have much art history program here. We have some art history classes, but it's so important to understand the history behind what it is that you're doing so that you have an idea of what's out there, and kind of helps you figure out stylistically what route you find the most intriguing, because you can see what's going on, you know what's going on. And my brain's like an encyclopedia of, fine artists, not so much illustrators, but more like fine art, like painting, drawing. I've already talked to you guys about Giacometti. He's one of my huge heroes as far as drawing is concerned. Man, this figure looks almost alien. I'm looking at where things are lining up. The elbow lines up with this part of the torso. I'm looking at the angles. The shape, this shape here is higher up on this side than it is on this side because of the curve, right? So the one thing I want you guys to really realize is that this figure is not standing perfectly upright. You really want to show the bend in the figure, and look at how off the head is. The head's off to the, in this case, off to the left. So with that curve, I'm kind of using this curve as a center line, more or less, right? Or an axis for the whole figure. So we have the head here. The axis will go through the center of the head. And then we have neck with, remember what we talked about a million times? I've told you about the trapezoid shape for the upper torso. And this shoulder's higher than this one. And then this has a side to it. And then this elliptical shape, you see how lightly I'm holding the pencil still like this? I'm not changing. Stick with this. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's something that you'll probably have a hard time getting used to, but the more you do it, and I'm just telling you, I can almost guarantee you that your drawings are going to get better and better. I do need an eraser, however, because I did mess up a little bit. Just one of those white erasers. Thank you. I appreciate it. Because I got this torso down a little bit too, this part, not the torso, but the upper part of the body is a little bit too long. Let's bring this up. I can tell that I made that too long, so you catch yourself. Just like I told you last class. God, I need to get some of those things. So ink, we need more ink. We need more of those giant brushes that we can brush eraser marks off or eraser stuff off with. I'll get some of those too. I'm trying to use the money that we have to really get the stuff that really makes, got to work in here. We have to give her breast and that, and then we have this, and then this was too low, so we need to raise this up. But you see, look already, this is exactly what I'm talking about. If I would have locked into all of this stuff just a minute ago, when I had this too long, guess what? If I would have made it too dark and I would have done contour like I've been bugging you guys about not to do right now, contour's not bad, but you got to do this first. If I would have locked in and made this real dark and used contour, then guess what? I'm going to settle for that because I don't want to spend all that time erasing it. You see where I'm going with this? So instead of doing that, I realized that I had this too low. So I just took that elliptical shape and raised it up, and I didn't have to erase anything. You understand where I'm going with this? That's one of the huge, and it looks like it's, and then whatever was underneath can just become a part of the drawing without having to say, uh-oh, I made a mistake, I got to take it out. That's one of the many reasons why I want you to draw this way to begin with. And just do all your drawings in the beginning this way. I was kind of thinking do some of them that way, but I was thinking to myself, well, heck, maybe they should just do all their drawings that way for now, because, and then if you look at this here and the bottom of this corner, look at the wrist. The wrist pretty much lines up with that bottom corner of this cylinder shape for the lower part of the torso. And then we have this here like that. Then this goes back like this. Take your pencil and line it up with the angle that you're trying to get. Sometimes you can do that. Let me get this out of the way. Oh, I feel the pain med coming in. Thank goodness. It's like it hits you all of a sudden. You're like, So that's good. Luckily, that's helping. So I'm kind of trying to do this kind of thing a little bit. May have had, does that look too severe? And then we have foreshortening, right? So we have a kneecap here. Yeah, this is the perfect size paper. This is really, now I can kind of loosen up and not have to worry about that other piece of paper. I love the tan paper, but it's just too short for really exploring this. I mean, it's kind of uncomfortable trying to draw that small when you can do it, but it's a pain. So why do it? Just go with this. I mean, I'm letting the pencil tip do the work, not trying to force it. I know it looks scratchy and weird, maybe, but it's a searching line. You can see that I'm searching for that shape without getting it too dark. Everybody see that? I hope. I mean, you can slowly darken a little bit, but just not much. You don't really have to, because we're going to let this take over. We don't want the pencil lines too dark anyway on top of everything, because we're going to do ink wash over this. Well, how do we do the hands? Remember, hands are basically like mittens, right? And the digits, like you think of these as sections, not individual fingers. So we have this to this, and then we can do another finger like that. Who put the middle finger out? Come on. You did that on purpose, didn't you?
No, it was a total accident.
Sure. Flip the teacher off. I see how it is. Won't be the first, won't be the last. Kind of reminds me of, you guys look up something real quick on your phones. Here, since you guys love getting on your phone so much, I'm going to get you to type in Marcel Duchamp. Here, look up here real quick. Famous artist from 100 years ago who basically created. And the crazy thing is my instructor at Robert Barnes at Indiana, he was an assistant to Marcel Duchamp, who was a world famous artist from France, who was famous for nude descending a staircase. Look this up real quick. Marcel Duchamp. And then type in nude descending a staircase. This was the beginning of, I'm giving you a little art history lesson here. A staircase. That staircase. Anybody ever heard of that painting before? It's kind of looks a little bit like what I'm doing. It kind of reminded me of this pose a little bit. It shows it's early Cubism. We had artists like Picasso, everybody's heard of Picasso, and Braque, B-R-A-Q-U-E. This was 120 years ago, or 115 years ago. So early 20th century, you had, and then, and right around World War I, you had the Armory show, and you had Marcel Duchamp, who was like this super intellectual, more of an intellectual than really, I mean, he's a great artist, but just really out there with his ideas. But genius level is what they say. And he kind of redefined art by creating anti-art. So check this out when you get a chance. I'm trying to give you a little bit of art history while we're. I'm sorry? Is it showing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Kind of, doesn't that look a little bit like the, I guess, maybe I'm off, I don't know. Kind of reminded me of that a little bit, the way the figure was posed. But yeah, he was, as far as kind of redefining the whole art world, 7 years ago, I think it was 1913. He kind of redefined everything. Then we have a wedge shape. As far as kind of thinking about questioning what art was. And then we have what was called conceptual art after that, which I'm not really a big fan of. I like some of it, which was way later. And actually one of the most famous living artists today is from South Carolina, believe it or not. Another artist named Jasper Johns, Johns, Jasper, Jasper. You guys should look these names up. So you want to know what's up out there. Jasper Johns, I think he's still alive. Could somebody check that for me? I know he's old as the hills. Then we have.
Still alive.
Still alive?
90 years old.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm glad he's still alive. Nice guy. Him and another artist named Robert Rauschenberg kind of picked up where Duchamp left off in the 50s and started, they started doing their thing kind of based on some of Duchamp's ideas. And then early conceptual, then you had an artist named Sol LeWitt in 1960, kind of rolled back. So they kind of looked back 50 years earlier and said, oh wow, I love the ideas that Duchamp had. Let's take that. And it's kind of weird because it skipped from like 1913 to 1955. There was a big gap of that kind of mentality, or 1913 to 1920. You can tell I've been researching that stuff for a while. So here comes the fun part. Are we ready? I've been rambling for a while. So what you want to do is open this up. You guys take a look, please, everybody. I hope you guys like getting some of the art history stuff because it really does help give you a broader knowledge about what. Always with this, I do what's called working dark to light. What I'm doing is just adding a little, I'm using the small one for right now. I'm just going to squint my eyes like this. You don't mind just moving them just a touch. You're perfect. Thank you. Squint your eyes. Look at how I'm doing this. You want to squint your eyes when you're looking at this and find the darkest areas first. And take your brush, just try to get the tip. Barely, just a little bit of water, but mostly that. Okay, where is the darkest area from my point of view? Does anybody want to tell me?
Either right under the chest or under her waist.
Yeah, I think under her waist, right here, I think, maybe, I don't know. That's about right. Mm-hmm. So we just start to pop in those. Another thing I need somebody's help real quick. I forgot. Could somebody go in the restroom and get a big thing of toilet paper, like a ball, like just pull out a bunch, because you're going to need, that's one thing that we'll need too. I forgot. Not for the wiping we do in the bathroom, but the wiping we You may have to blot things out if it gets too, so you want to have like, actually toilet paper works the best. You don't want to use that really rough stuff because it's harder to blot up. It's almost like watercolor, like I said earlier. Who has the watercolor in the little sketchbook that I gave? I forgot who got it last.
Me.
Are you about done?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll need that from you so I can give it to somebody else.
Okay.
And right now, like you can see, you go back up, scroll up and look at that, and then you see that I'm squinting my eyes and I'm looking for the darkest darks. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your help. So let me see some of that. I just need a little bit of it, not a huge thing, but this, everybody will need some eventually, so. Everybody needs to wipe every once in a while, right? So you'll have something like this, and I'll just show you, even though this isn't, this isn't too dark, but if you did get it too dark, let's just say let me just do another area. Let's just do that here. I don't know. Put this cast shadow in. You really got to play up the shadows. And don't worry about trying to be so precise. I mean, you want to be precise, but say we had that too dark, for instance, which it wasn't. You can blot real fast and it'll lighten it up quickly. So you want to have this handy just in case. This is just my way of teaching it. I mean, other instructors are going to give you different. This is what works for me. And you'll find that in art programs, different teachers have different biases about what works and what doesn't. Let's see, where's another dark? Yeah, like underneath. It's not nearly as dark as down here, so we really want to make sure that we're, just add just a tad bit of water as you're going. Do not try to save, I'm going to say this many times, try to save your highlights. It's just like watercolor. If you get into watercolor later on, if you're in another class, maybe with me or whoever, you don't want the lightest areas you want to leave alone, even if they're not completely, bright light, super light. All these cast shadows have different grays. Look back up there, show them in the torso, where the breast, you see where the cast shadows are? See all the different grays within the cast shadows? They're different shades. You have to use more water to lighten it up a little bit. Like if you have ink on there, the more water you add to it, the lighter it's going to get, because it's making the ink less concentrated. You know what I'm saying? You guys just do this. And you can hold the brush like this for now. We're not doing gesture drawing anymore. So it's okay we don't have to get crazy about, you can see how I'm kind of trying to keep it fairly loose even at this point. I'm not trying to be super defined with it, but I keep looking down and up to see where the shadows are. You constantly have to, it's like watching a ping pong match. You're constantly looking down, looking up, down, up. Except the ping pong, you're looking left or right. That's literally the truth. Even at my stage, even when you've been doing this a long time, it's just an instantaneous thing. And so what we're trying to do now, one thing that you may want to do, remember some sort of a value scale might help. If you have like a 10-step or even longer, like a 20-step value scale from black to white, so that if you're trying to, what I tell people to do if they're having a hard time, is there a value scale back there? Hang on, I know, you can tell how prepared I am right now. I had a gray, take a look right here, there was a gray thing of gray papers, that's it. What I'm probably gonna do is open this up at some point and have everybody make, come on Darren, I'm very impatient right now. That's why I bought this for one reason. That's one of the reasons why I bought this. That's what I was trying to say. Hang on a sec. What I'll probably do that's why I love having all these supplies. I can actually this semester I got every supply I could think of except for a few things that I still got to get. But what we could do is, there's different grays here. We can take one sheet each and cut out squares and have everybody make their own with solid different grays, because you can see we have the different, that's one of the reasons why I bought this. Now that's tan paper, so we're not gonna use that, but, and then the ones that we don't have, we can get different. So we'll probably do that at some point, is make some value charts out of this. You mind setting that back there for me? So that we can, because it would be good to have a value chart, if you look at me real quick. So that what you can do, if you have a value chart, remember we made one at the beginning of the semester. If you have a 10-step values chart with all those strips, you can put the value over the corresponding shade on the model and see if it's the same darkness. And if it is, if it matches a particular shade when you're doing this, you can just make that shade with the ink and a little bit of water. Thank you. And then we're just really trying to match you can see all this is kind of darker here. This part of the leg is lit up, so we're not going to touch it until that part you don't want to touch. You got to go back to a little bit darker for the kneecap, because there's kind of this curve right here. And we're just kind of going around. What time is it? Somebody know?
105.
Okay, because I want you guys to draw in a minute. I don't want you guys sitting here watching me the whole time. You got to experience it yourself. Just want you to see how to get started with this at least. Yeah, sometimes it's going to seep in. That's no big deal if you don't want it to do that. Like I said, you can see how I blotted that a little bit. And as you can see, what did I said earlier, go dark to light, right? So I'm saving all the whites. You don't want to, and we're just really focusing on all these cast shadows once I get the drawing the way I want it, right? And I'm looking up and down, and constantly trying to, it's darker. Don't be too bashful. I mean, don't get crazy, but don't be too bashful. I mean, we can use a larger brush too. You don't have to use just the smaller one. Problem is, a little bit, is you want to get a tip with this so that you can carefully do that. It's way too dark for what I need, so I'll just add a little water to it and see where we're at. Have this ready in case it does get too dark. I don't know where we're, that's fine. We're good. And this kind of, for bigger areas, I'm just popping in bigger spots. One thing that you can do also that I haven't done yet is after you do the preliminary drawing, I'm doing wet into dry, which means that the paper's dry and I'm putting a wet. What you can do to keep the, another thing that you can do if you don't like wet into dry, which I'm fine with right now, is wet into wet, which means you would do the preliminary drawing first with a pencil, very lightly, just like I did. And then take your large bamboo brush, make sure there's no ink on it, and wet the whole paper down. And then it'll keep when you put the ink on top, it'll keep the ink from spreading so much. That's called wet into wet. It's a little different technique. But basically all I'm doing is concentrating on these cast shadows for now. And if I make them a little too light, that's okay. I can go back and darken later, or kind of go back between the two. The smaller brush is greater for, I'm trying to make lines. See how it spreads. That's okay though, it kind of adds to it kind of adds to the whole, I don't know. I'm not really big on having everything look so precise, but that's just my style. I'm more interested in how the light is affecting the figure than I am worrying about, oh, does that, we want to get the scale and proportion correct, but I like having loose drawings rather than really defined. I've done plenty of defined drawings, but this is more fun for me. The light is what I'm most interested in. I want to see if you guys can understand how to make the light. You can go, like I said before, you can go with the leg, but you also want to probably do some curves against and if it gets too weird for you, you can blot out a little bit. You just have to get used to using this stuff. It just takes a little time. Cast shadows, you really have to focus on getting these cast shadows. Oh man, that's wrong. I gotta bring this down here. See, I just messed up. I have whatever this shape is, it was too short. No big deal. Sometimes if you have a dark line like this and it's not in the right place, you can kind of go over it if it's dried already, and then just take this and do this. Please do not knock these over. Holy smokes, that's a big, maybe not. Sometimes when it dries like that, it is really a pain to get it to come back up. But that's okay. It's part of the fun of. So what I'm going to do is continue working on this. I want you guys to go. We can stop the video. Thanks, guys.